Hi, Aries Sun and Rising. Welcome to your January 2022 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Ooh, so you guys have a lot of stuff going on with career matters. And also, it's like a very goal oriented time for you. And the interesting thing about this particular situation is that we have a Venus retrograde in the picture and a Mercury retrograde, and they're in adjacent signs. But while Mercury retrogrades several times a year, Venus only does so once every year, or I think it's, like once a year, maybe a year and a half. I think Mars is 2 years and Venus is a year and a half, something like that. So it's not happening all the time. And as we go into the new year, we have Venus retrograding in Capricorn, and that for you is the 10th house of career. So there's something going on with Aries and what it is that they do. And this may even be more of an internalized thing that has to do with your values. Aries is a very ambitious sign. You're very competitive. You really like to show that you're number one, or if you feel like you need to work on your status, you're more than willing to do so because you can have that. Actually, I think that can be quite fun for an Aries person to kind of have something to aspire to. Once you get to the mountaintop, it might be a little bit, I won't say sad, but it might even be unnerving because all of a sudden you got what you had fought so hard for. So the 10th house for you being Capricorn is perfect because Capricorn rules the 10th house, and it's all about those things that are connected with status and achievement. And so right at the beginning of the month, we have this new moon at 12 degrees of Capricorn on the 2nd of January. And at that time, Venus is retrograding and making you think about, what is it that you value that has to do with what it is that you do and how it pertains to your place in the world. Because sometimes a person may not be happy doing what they're doing, but they find it hard to let go of that status. Other people look up to them. Other people think, wow, that person's a doctor. That person is a professor. And, you might have colleagues or students, if you are in academia, who look up to you and give you that sense of self, but inside you still may not feel okay. And that's, the people that are in that position, because this may have nothing to do with this. This might be like a salary dispute that's going on for several weeks. It might be something very literally about the money that you're making, but I always like to bring it to something more than that, because Venus can be about your values, what it is that is important to you. And in the 10th house, in the tarot, the devil is connected to Capricorn, and that's because there can be over materialism or some kind of clinging to something that is of the flesh. And I would even include the ego as part of that, as a big part of the devil. And so, yeah, that might be something that, and even with the salary issue, it's, or if you're like overly attached to a job because it makes good money, but you feel like either you're not doing something that is beneficial for humanity or that your heart isn't in it. for Aries, it's so easy for you to get bored, and you tend to be very honest people, straightforward people. So anything where you are being fake will be especially painful for you. So I'm just kind of like setting the table here, setting the stage about what might be going on with this retrograde. And on the very same day, which I think is probably not a coincidence that everything is orchestrated in this way, Mercury's going into Aquarius. Now that's in the next house. That's the 11th house. And of course, this is a general forecast, obviously. So the 11th house is the house of hopes and wishes. It's the house of friendships, group associations. Mercury is very social because it is in that house that it rules. I mean, in the house that is about social. It doesn't rule the 11th house. It's in the house that's about social things. And so it could be as simple as getting in touch with friends that you maybe over the holidays, everything was so hectic that you are now touching base with people that are, in your social circle. But it can also be thinking about your goals. This is characterized as hopes and wishes in this house. So, these are things that you may really want and that are almost like more to me like fun. Um, you know, Career matters, the 10th house can be goals too, obviously, but it's more serious. This is more about your life as a whole. And maybe some people would say, oh, that's not really what it's all about, but that's how I see it. And there's just a sense, and it's interesting too, because this is a house of gains. So let's see, I'm trying to see here. In a little while, Venus will come into that house, but now Mercury is in that house. So you might be thinking about, you might be crunching numbers as it pertains to your career earnings and trying to find out what you need. And maybe this is so that you can live this dream life of yours that may have nothing to do with what you're all about right now. Perhaps you are going to radically change things at some point because, Jupiter is going to go into your sign, Aries, later this year, later in 2022, I should say, because I'm recording this at the end of 2021. And that can create expansion in your life in any number of directions. So it's pretty cool. And then on the 14th, Mercury goes retrograde here. So this might involve rethinking some of your dreams. And also, being the house of friendship, there could be a misunderstanding with a friend, not a falling out per se, but what do they call that when you don't, maybe you have like, it's lost in communication, lost in translation, and, plans fall through or something like that. It's important all the time, but obviously during Mercury retrograde times, that people don't jump to conclusions. Because sometimes I know that does happen anyway. Happens when you write something online and somebody can't tell it's sarcastic and they get offended, or just there's so many different ways that this can transpire. So realizing that some of the dreams that you have you may be rethinking, that doesn't mean that you're not going to do it. You have Saturn in this house right now, and Saturn is very serious. And so in the 11th house, it's like, it's time for me to buckle down and stop this frivolous socializing. Saturn may be cutting through some of those people who are not really adding to your life. Saturn is very much about weeding things out, paring them down. And it's also about bringing something to manifestation in the physical reality. So, going back to that idea of hopes and wishes, well, hopes and wishes can be very vague and very, pie in the sky. And Saturn's very practical, grounded. And it's also like that architect energy of like building from a grounded perspective, not pie in the sky. But we need that inspiration too. It's not that we don't need it, but we have to marry it with logic, and how are you going to actually make this happen? You've got some, lofty dreams. How are you going to make them happen? On the 17th, we have a full moon at 27 degrees of Cancer, and this is your domestic area, the fourth house. Aries, this is a later degree of Cancer, so something could really be coming to the end stages, the climax. Maybe you've been trying to sell a house and it's kind of like stop and go, and now it's a done deal. And the solar eclipse in Sag was in your ninth house of foreign travel. So that might have been connected to this, where you're relocating overseas, or at least spending some time there and selling a current property, leaving a current home or residence that you've had. If you've had, like, for instance, if your mother has made her transition and you have been involved with her property, the house that has been in the family, and you're just finally wrapping all of that up. It could be that, and even like childhood issues that could, and by the way, the fourth house is about, could be about the father as well. But this is kind of like the end of this journey that you've had with one of your parents, either there, if that has, their life is over and you're, having that closure, or if you have cut off contact with them after the holidays, and after, realizing, maybe you've come to a realization after the holidays about how you have been regarded all your life, how you've been treated. That's entirely possible because this is only a couple of weeks after all of that. So there's all possibilities. And, when I talk about, like, even an issue about death with parents, obviously that this is not going to be the case for everyone. It's just, covering all the bases. On the 18th, Uranus goes direct at 10 degrees of Taurus. And this, the Mercury retrograde was a perfect square to Uranus at that time. And so it was affecting you from the 11th house to the second house, and which is interesting because that was, that was like a tense angle between those houses. So we're talking about this hopes and wishes and about earned income. So it may be that some Aries people have ideas about what they want to do that are part of your dream life, but you don't know how to practically execute that, based on how you earn money currently. And that's okay. You don't have to solve all these problems at once. The fact that Uranus is in your second house really suggests some kind of like freedom with money. Sometimes this can be erratic swings with money during the time. I don't know when Uranus is going to leave Taurus. I would say probably within 4 years or so, by 2026 or something along those lines. But anyway, for it to be in your second house, Uranus rules technology, so you might be making money through internet, online, and it could be as simple as having your own business, but it could also be working for somebody else and doing it remotely. And that is actually ideal for you because, let's face it, you don't play well with others a lot of times. And that's because you're very independent and you don't want to. I know I don't either. And I'm a Sagittarian. That's a hallmark of a fire sign, is to be very independent. And so embrace that. And that's why I say, with all this ruminating that could be going on, that has to do with, oh my gosh, I'm trying to put in oh my gosh, my phone was about to, click off there. But yeah, with all with the Mercury retrograde in your 10th house, not Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, you might really be, crunching numbers about like, or even on the level of, what your values are, because freedom is so important to you. And you don't want to just, you may see time slipping away and saying, what am I doing here? I can't take it with me. So why am I just, wasting all this time doing things for what? What's the end game here? So the Uranus in the second house, in terms of the instability, it can be exciting too. And I think Aries people might really enjoy this. If I was talking to a Taurus or a Cancer, they might, get very tense at the idea of having wild swings in their finances. But I think Aries might actually enjoy it because there's that possibility of a wild swing in the plus side of things, on the plus side of things. When I was talking about the possibility of you doing internet work, something that popped in my mind was day trading. But I didn't say it because I didn't want to give you any ideas. But that might be something that you are already doing. And that could be that wild swing where you're, but you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them. Okay, and I just think Uranus direct on the 18th, it might be a little bit more stable, if there is such a thing with Uranus. On the 19th, the sun goes into Aquarius, the sun goes into the 11th house, and so this could be a social time for you. And maybe it is because Saturn is there. Maybe you are just trying to network and it's not really all fun and games. I don't know. On the 24th, Mars goes into Capricorn. So Mars is your ruler. Mars goes into that 10th house and it's on. And remember that Venus is retrograding at that time in that house. So it could get a little contentious with salary renegotiation or just negotiation. It's later at night and I'm a little spaced. But where Aries trips up is getting too aggressive. Less is more. Being understated is not weak. It's actually, more. It's actually a stronger position. This may simply be, for some of you, having nothing to do with fighting with authority figures, which the 10th house can be authority figures, but simply feeling more ambitious than usual. So the only thing to watch out for is stepping on the toes of those who are in positions of authority or somehow rebelling against them. Even if they are doing things that you dislike, try to find an artful way of handling it. Even if you're outraged or they stoke that sense of rebelliousness or whatever in you, don't allow yourself to get caught up in outrage. Be the bigger person, and you will make a lot of people sit up and take notice. But this can be a particularly productive period for you as well with Mars here, because Mars gives you so much energy and ambition, and will too. On the 25th, the next day, Mercury goes into Capricorn. So Mercury is actually retrograding. So here we have two retrograding planets, that 10th house, renegotiations. Also, coming from the 11th to the 10th house, it can even be that sense of, what exactly do I want to do with my life? And how does that connect with my career? An example would be, let's say that you were working remotely and now they want you to come back into the office. And you're like, do I really want to do that? I've gotten hooked on this freedom. I don't have somebody looking over my shoulder all the time. But if I quit, what's going to take its place? I mean, I've got to make a decision. And you may feel this sense of, you're at some kind of a crossroads. But remember that you have two personal planets retrograding in this house. So if you can avoid making a decision for a bit, it probably would be better. Usually I say, don't be superstitious, do what you feel is right. But, these are important decisions too. It's not just like any old thing. So obviously, if you have to make a decision, you have to make it. It may not even be up to you, but if you are torn and if you don't have to make a decision, allow yourself more time to think about it. But the Aries person likes to do things. You like to take action, but you want to really think things through. Also be careful with this loaded 10th house and having two retrograding planets, including Mercury. Be careful that your words don't get twisted, either intentionally or just because of Mercury retrograde, because it can create problems in and of itself. So that, be very clear in your communication. On the 29th, Venus goes direct at 11 degrees of Capricorn. There may be some resolution if there was some kind of money issue, but in any case, you will likely see things starting to smooth out. Early March is when Venus comes out of her shadow completely. But she's, gets stronger and stronger in February. And Mercury goes direct like in early February. So these things, but it also has a post-shadow period too. The point is that this too shall pass. You don't want to be... There are times when you can get away with being rash, doing things too quickly without thinking about it, and it just so happens that it, falls in your favor. But here, because you have two personal planets that are retrograding, you want to be very deliberate in how you approach things, because they will impact you personally. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. I do, transit readings. I can do transit readings for 2022 for you, looking at your natal chart. I have a combination reading with a chart analysis. It's a 2-hour total reading for a special price. You can find out more information about that and that's called Deep Dive, and I have other readings at the link below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.